The overlocker sews, cuts and finishes in one step. This is some fabric that I had left over from the dress that I'm wearing, which is a stretch fabric. The overlocker allows the stretch fabric to stretch, and as you see, the seam is complete. So let's go and I'll show you how to use this fantastic machine. So for step 1, we'll go over the names of the working parts of the machine. The overlockers are pretty much all the same, like sewing machines. They might just have their features in slightly different places. As for example, that's why I have 2 overlockers here. You'll see this one here has the knobs, while this one, the thread, is lay-in. So it's the same yet slightly different. And then after that, we'll go on to the threading of the machine. And there's 2 ways. There's an easy way, which I'll do first. And I can do the demonstration with the different colours here on pulling the thread through. And then after that, I'll take all the threads out and start from the very beginning. So first off, we have what's called the thread stand. And you have to make sure the thread stand is up when you commence sewing. See, this one is down. Make sure it's up because your stitches will not be correct when you're sewing if your thread stand is not up. The next is you'll notice that there's 4 reels. And they're on a spool pin. And there's also the cone holder. And that stops the vibration of the cones. 4 relates to, you could say, 4 needles. We have 2 needles on the upper part of the machine. Your left needle, left, and right needle, and then the lower needles, which we actually call loopers. We have the upper looper and the lower looper. And you can see the thread going through the eye of the upper looper and the thread going through the eye of the lower looper. When I put my hand on the hand wheel and turn the hand wheel towards myself, you can see how they're coming across. A very important point is your lower looper. See that thread of the lower looper? It's going over, it's sliding over the top of the upper looper. That is so important to always make sure. See how it's sliding over the top? Because I'm turning the hand wheel towards me. If you ever turn the hand wheel backwards, see how that lower looper, the thread, is underneath of the upper looper? That means problems and knots. So always if you're got a problem, always make sure that the lower looper, see how it's sliding on top of the upper looper. Now we come to the side of the machine. The top dial is your stitch length. So smaller the number, closer the stitches are to each other. Higher the number, further away the stitches are from each other, and this is the default where the line is. Then we have the differential feed dial. This is a great feature because it actually stops waving of the fabric. As you can see here, this seam was all wavy. So with the differential feed, you can adjust to come up, and it actually takes the waviness out of the fabric. You can see the difference there. That was differential feed 1.7, and same fabric, but it's just taken the waviness out of the seam. And coming down the other way, it takes out the puckering of the fabric. But I will give more of an instruction about the differential feed later on in the tutorial. Then we have the hand wheel. As I said, you always turn it towards yourself. We have the on-off button and the power source, which has the pedal and the power source. Pop it in and turn it back on. Now with this overlocker, stitch style again, up the top. It just looks a little bit different, but it's still the same features. We're coming down. You notice the R, that's for the rolled hem, which we will talk about in another video, or you're coming up high. So that's your stitch length. The fabric as we sew, we have the blade. This is the blade here, the upper blade, but it does also have a lower blade. And as I turn that hand wheel, you can see how it takes the function of scissors, that it is actually cutting the fabric. You can disengage the upper knife. On this particular model, I push and turn, and the upper knife is disengaged. The lower knife here, if I open this side door, we have a cutting width knob. So I'll zoom in a little bit closer so you can see the lower cutting knife. And as I turn the knob, you can see how the cutting lower knife can be adjusted for your different cutting widths. It's only about 1 mil between each measurement, but that does sometimes make the difference if there's too much fabric bulked underneath your stitches. And then I'll come back out again. Don't forget to re-engage your knife. So turn and it will just click into place. The other overlocker I have here, this is the knife here, but to disengage the knife with this model, I'll open up the side, and this one, as you see, it's got a front knob and a back knob. So to disengage the knife for this model, the back knob I push and the blade comes down out of the way. And to move the lower cutting knife is the front knob. See how it's moving out and coming back in. This one hasn't got numbers, so we just see it's nice and close, in the middle or further away. Still on the same overlocker, if you would like to achieve a rolled hem finish as this sample, again, just going to open the door, and I will open the front cover as well. So with this particular machine, you have to actually disengage the knife to move the lever forward to the R. See how it's on S here? That's for your standard sewing, and then R is rolled hem. So on this machine, the back knob, I had to push and disengage the knife, and then that allows me to push the front knob, and you can move the red forward. Again, coming back to standard, because if we don't disengage the knife, see how I'm pushing that front knob and this plate will not move over. So disengage the knife, this lever to move for rolled hem. I have to push the white. See how this black came out, which lets me move that red lever forward. So I'm going to put it back to standard sewing now. So I'll push that forward, come back to the standard, and remember to re-engage your knife. Don't start sewing without your knife re-engaged. So that is for the Janome. So now I'll come back to the Bernina, and with the Bernina, all I have to do with that one, see this white lever here, see the little groove, that's on standard. If I click it forward to roll hem, now that's roll hem. I didn't have to do anything with the knife, I just moved it forward. So as I said, all machines are pretty much the same in their features, but a little bit different. So you can see that for yourself there. So I have disengaged the knife and removed the presser foot to show you the stitch finger. This is the stitch finger that the stitches, I'll turn the hand wheel, and you can see how the stitches are formed over the stitch finger. The loopers on either side are over the stitch finger. Now for the rolled hem, when we moved that lever forward for the rolled hem, you will see that stitch finger has now gone. There's a stitch finger here, and then the rolled hem, there's no stitch finger. Also, there are 2 lots of feed dogs here. Sewing machine only has 1 lot of feed dogs, so 1, 2. There's 2 lots of feed dogs that actually can move independently from each other. Feed dogs being able to move independently of each other, that's where the differential feed comes into play, the lower knob. The feed dog at the front is denoted by the letter C, the feed dog at the back D. So when on this particular machine, when it is on default, it's on N, and as you can see, the 2 feed dogs are moving at the same distance. But to stop waving, that means your fabric will stretch like this. With the knob, see 1.5 to 2, you can just graduate how much that you want the waving to be adjusted. On this sample here, it is 1.7, and as you see, it's taken all that waving out because the front feed dog is moving at a greater distance than the back feed dog in each of the motion as it's going through the machine. Now sometimes you might find your fabric is puckered, especially with finer woven fabrics. In that case, you could bring the differential feed knob to negative. See how it's coming down the other way, and what that does, you can see at the back here, the D, it's moving at a greater distance than the front. So it's keeping your fabric nice and taut, so it takes the puckering out of your seam. Pulling the thread through the machine. So we have the left needle, right needle, upper looper, lower looper, and it's corresponding with the colour for each reel. So I have the different colour reels here corresponding with the colours on my machine. So the first step is I'm going to cut these threads at the bottom. You're always best to cut closer to the reel than up here, just in case you put your foot down and then the thread has already gone through the machine. So it's a little bit of an insurance, you could say. So just cut all the threads off here. Take these white ones off. Now yellow, put the yellow here, green, green, blue and red. So now I'm going to tie each of those off. Put the 2 threads together, coming around my finger like so, and through the loop, and tighten it. And don't cut all the way close to the knot, just leave a little bit of thread. So that's your lower looper. Now the upper looper. And continue with your needle threads tying off. So as you can see, all the reels have been tied and just left a little bit of thread from the knot. Don't cut right up near the knot, because as you're pulling it through, if you tug too much, that knot might break. The next important point is make sure you cut those needle threads, the 2 needles up the top. Cut those 2 threads at the front here, and then as I pull that chain, look, there's no threads in the eye of the needle. So you can put your tensions on 0, or I'll just leave the tensions where they are at the moment, but the presser foot is up. opening the front cover, and as you can see, there's the color coordinate for the different reels here. So I'm going to start off by pulling the lower looper through first. So this chain here, if I just cut a bit of that chain off, you can see now that there's 2 threads. So we've got our 2 needle threads at the front here. There's 2 threads at the back. They're your loopers. So I'm just going to see which one is the lower looper, which is this one here, the red. So as I'm pulling that, coming along, and another point is make sure it isn't caught underneath the thread stand. Okay, so here we are, the knot's coming. When it's coming towards the tensions, you might have to just help it a little bit if you haven't put your tensions on 0, because the knot's going through. If you just pull it without, so I'm just giving it that little help to get through the tensions. So now you'll start seeing the red coming through where the red dots are. So just give it that little bit of a help to come through, and there we are. There, that is the lower looper, and it's gone through the lower looper eye here. Okay, so now for the upper looper, which is the blue. So the other thread, the other white thread here, I'm going to help that coming along too, because I haven't put my tensions on 0. So here we are, coming through around where all the different color coordinates is, and there we have the loopers. So the loopers are through. That's the main thing that you always want to see, is the loopers to come through. Now we're going to thread the eyes of the needles at the top, so we can close this. The needles are always threaded last. If ever you have a knot or anything, you just cut the needle threads up the top, because every time the needle goes down into the throat plate, it forms a stitch. So you want to make sure that your needles up the top are threaded last. So I'm going to thread the 2 needles. Oh, I better pull it through first. Okay, so there we have the green from the right needle, then the left, which is yellow. I'm going to pull the yellow one through, and helping it a bit to come through, and we have the yellow. Maybe we just pull them both together there. Okay, so there we have the right, which is the green, and the left. So it's come out from the thread guide. So here's the thread guide here. So I'm just going to pop that around there, and whoops, but not forget up there. So let's pull it around, so, and around, so, and now I'm going to thread those needles. So now you can see the 2 needle threads at the front here, where the needles have been threaded, and the 2 looper threads are at the back. I'm only going to hold the looper threads, not the needle threads, only the looper threads. With the hand wheel, just turn the hand wheel towards yourself a couple of times to feel that it's okay and it's not a little bit knotty or what have you, and then press a foot down, and there we have the chain. A very important point is to make sure the thread of your lower looper is always over the top of your upper looper. This is your lower looper, this is your upper looper. So the lower looper, my machine is threaded in red. So as I turn that hand wheel towards me, you can see how the red thread slides over the top of that upper looper. That's very important. I'm going to turn the hand wheel backwards, and you'll see what will happen. See now how the lower looper thread is underneath? So if I put my foot down on the presser foot pedal, that will just be one big knot. So always turn the wheel towards yourself to make sure that that lower looper thread is sliding on top of the upper looper. If you have made a mistake and you've put your foot down and it's just one big knot, the next step would be to cut your needle threads. needle threads up the top here. Just cut those needle threads and you'll have your 2 looper threads. That's the best thing to do. Make sure that there's no thread in those needles up the top if you have any problem down the bottom and you're rethreading, because every time that needle goes down through the throat plate, it's forming a chain, and you just don't want to do any of that until you get this all set up, and then you can thread the needles last and then form the chain. So if your thread is underneath, all you've got to do is turn the hand wheel towards you, see, and now the thread has gone on top. So now I have pulled all the threads out of the overlocker, and I'm going to rethread from step 1. So on my machine, I do have the color coordinated chart here showing me the different points where to thread. So first off, I have the upper looper, which is blue. So I have my blue thread, and I also have the which I've popped in, and that will go onto the thread spool so that it stops the vibration. So I'll pop that on. It comes from the back up around the thread stand, and then I'm holding it like floss to go through the tension coming down. I'm threading my upper looper, which is denoted in the blue, so it's coming, it's across here, which is this one here with the blue, then goes down, and just hold it here, okay, then it comes across, see it's got blue here, so the tweezers are good to help, so it's in there, right, then from here up around this little hook here, we'll use my tweezers and this little hook, and then from the little hook through the eye of the upper looper. So I'm just turn the wheel. This is my upper looper here. Okay, the one that's going across that way is your upper looper. I'm just going to thread that through the eye of the upper looper. This side. Oh. Okay, and it goes towards the back. Okay, so I'm just popping it underneath the foot. Right, so as you can see, the upper looper now has been threaded. Now, number 2 is the lower looper, denoted in the red. The red dots here, in here. So I'll show you with the red now. So now we're up to the lower looper. I've already gone through the lower looper tension, and I'm following the red guide. So there's a red dot here. So there, and there's a red, see it's coming across here. So I'll just put the red coming around that way with the tweezers. Now with the lower looper, that can be a bit tricky with the lower looper threading. This particular machine, it is showing that this lever here, if I bring that lever down, then I can see more clearly where I'm going to be threading. So I'm threading here. That's telling me to. And also this hook here. It's coming up. This hook here. And then with the lever, with the lever, I can just bring that lever back, and then from there I can thread the eye of my lower looper, and then the lower looper is threaded from front to back. That's what tweezers help. And then that thread is going to be placed on top of the overlooper. Remember, it's always got to go on top of the overlooper. So now, we have the 2 threads, as you can see. These are my loopers. Turn the wheel towards myself. You can see the red is going on top. It's not forming a chain yet because the needle threads have not been threaded up the top, and we always thread those last. So now we're up to number 3, which will be the green, and that is the right needle. Now we're threading the right needle. I have gone up over the thread guide, but coming through, this is for the lay-in tension. Make sure that it does actually click in, not that it's just laid in. And then see this, it's not actually clicked in, so you will find you'll have no tension and your stitches will not be formed correctly. So make sure that it does actually click in. And then coming around the green symbols here, the right on my one. So once you've threaded your loopers, threading of the needles is pretty easy. So I can close this door now. So I'm going to thread that needle. Now threading of the left needle. Up over the thread guide from the back to the front. Again, holding it like floss to make sure that it is secure in your thread tension. Coming around, there's the yellow dot up here, yellow dot here, left needle thread guide here, and then threading the needle from the front to the back, the tweezers, coming around and thread that eye of the needle, tweezers, getting that thread. Okay, so we have our 2 needle threads at the front, your loopers at the back. Going to bring the presser foot up. So you're only going to hold your loopers, not your needle threads. They'll just get fed through as the chain forms. So put your hand on the hand wheel, turn the hand wheel towards yourself a couple of times to feel it's okay. Then the presser foot down, and there the chain is formed. So now we're ready to sew. I'm going to cut off some of the fabric, so I'll just place it in front of the knife here, and I don't even have to bring my presser foot up because the feed dogs will grab it and move it along. And then continue to have a chain. And as you see, the stitches are all balanced. You can see the blue from the upper looper at the top. Red underneath is the lower looper. The yellow line of stitching is my left needle, and this line of stitching is your right needle, and they actually hold the loopers in place for you. And with the red, as you see, it's just along the top. If you find the red ever comes over or the blue goes over, that has to do with your tensions, which I will do another video on tensions, how you can regulate to bring either the threads over or back. For finishing raw edges, as you see here on the green sample, you don't need a really wide seam like the 4 threads, so we take out the left needle and just leave the right needle in. So for finishing raw edges, we just need a narrower seam. So I don't need the left needle. So we take that thread out and I can just kind of pull that. And now it's only the 3 threads here, but you have to take the needle out as well. Don't leave the needle in because that will affect your stitches. I'm just going to take this needle out. Just comes down and up. Don't take that screw right out because it'll end up getting lost. Okay, so now we've just got the 1 needle. And I don't want to be cutting off any of the raw edge. I want to try and keep that seam as wide as I can. So I've put the presser foot up and I'm going to butt it against the knife because the knife is in front of the needle. So I've butted it up against the knife because I don't want to cut any of it off. I'm just skimming along so that just take off just a fraction, but you don't want to be making the seam narrow. So as you see, hardly anything is coming off at all. It's buttered right up to the knife. So you can see that that seam is narrower to this seam, because that's all you need to finish off a raw edge. You don't want all that thread on the side of your seam allowance. We'll rethread this Janome overlocker as well, just to show you that all machines are the same but just slightly different with threading. For this overlocker, it shows that the left needle is yellow, right needle is blue, upper looper is red, lower looper is green. So from the back to the front of the thread stand, and then it has the holes along the top here. So we're just going to go in the left first, coming down and then coming over and down again, like so. But it's best to have a look at your manual. With this overlocker, it has the tension dials instead of the lay-in tension. The two tension dials at the top are for our needles, our upper needles, and the two at the bottom are for our loopers. So I have gone through here. Now with the tension, it is important that it does actually click in. You don't want it loose, or else your stitches aren't going to stitch correctly. Just feel that it has gone in. Maybe sometimes just give it a little tug up and it will come over. So here is the actual instructions on threading. So I'm doing the lower looper first because the machine says here to do that one first, but the other machine had the upper looper first. So you just follow the instructions on your machine and manual. So the color coding instructions are here for the green. So I've gone around the tension. So I'm coming down to this section here, which is, there's that dot there for here, and then it's coming across. So from here it will come across to there. Tweezers, coming here, and green, green, green. Now from here, where I am here, it's got to come up, and there's a little hook inside here. With the other overlocker, it did have a little switch that came down. Some have a little switch that come down, some have a switch that goes up, but this particular one, I have to open the side. So the next step from the illustration here, see where I've come out, we have to go up and underneath a little hook, and that little hook, you can just see the green here underneath. So I'm going to pop that, keep it a bit taut, and then with the tweezers try to click that into this little holder. So you can see why, if you're thinking of buying an overlocker, get one that the lower loop is really easy to thread. Okay, see how that's in now? Right, so now I have to turn the machine around, and now this holder here, the green, you can see the little green mark, that's the other end of the lower looper. We have to actually get it, and then the next step was to get it through the hole of the lower looper, the other end of the lower looper, and then I'm going to push that through and go to the other side and grab that thread. So from the illustration there, you saw I came up, I went through the other end of the lower looper. There was a hole there I went through at the front of the lower looper, and then I'm going to thread from the front to the back. I have threaded from the front of the lower looper to the back of the lower looper, and then place that thread around the back here. So the lower looper is threaded. That's the most trickiest one. So if you're thinking of buying an overlocker, always ask, how hard is this particular overlocker for threading? Now we're up to the upper looper. I have already threaded the tensions. This one's a bit easier, as I said, as it shows where to go. Here, here's another red mark here, and then looking at the instructions, it's coming down, then up around this little wire here, up around that little wire there, and then I'm just going to get the lower looper out of the way, and then I will thread, just get that out of the way here. See how the red thread is in the middle of the two upper and lower loopers, but then the upper looper, the lower looper I mean, slides over the top of the upper looper. Okay, your loopers are threaded. Hooray! We'll close that door and close this door, and now just to thread the two needles. Okay, so the two upper needles are threaded. They're quite easy, like a sewing machine really, just around the tension. As you see, the right needle, thread guide, and thread from the front to the back, and the left needle the same. So we have our two needle threads at the front, our loopers are at the back. Just going to hold the loopers, turn the wheel towards you, just to feel everything's fine there, and with the presser foot, and the chain will form. There we are. So I hope you're feeling a little bit more confident now, understanding the working names and functions of the overlocker, as well as the two different ways that we rethreaded the machine, either by pulling through the thread, or if you have to thread the whole machine box and dice, we covered that as well. But always refer to your manual, because the lower looper, even though they've all got the same function, they could just be threaded slightly different. So the overlocker, it does so many more things other than just sewing your seams and raw edges, such as rolled hemming, flat locking for your gym wear, gathering. So I will be uploading more videos in regards to the application of the overlocker, as well as a video on adjusting machine tensions, which is very important. So please like this video. And Benji, did you want to say something? Oh, see, he's asking. Subscribe. Good boy. That's a good boy. Okay, so until next time, happy sewing.